So thanks so much for stopping in and checking out this week's video, guys. If you like this kind of content, make sure that you get subscribed down below and also consider hitting that like button on the way out. It definitely helps the channel out a lot. So at CES 2023 this year, we saw this case, along with many other rather interesting concoctions from the crew over at Inwin. Now, while this doesn't look very much like a PC case, I can assure you that inside of this box is Inwin's POC. It's a build-it-yourself case that they are shipping flat-packed in order to save on some costs. But it also does present a rather unique opportunity to the end user to put it together themselves and kind of have a bit of a DIY experience outside of the normal just installing a motherboard and GPU. But I wanted to contrast that with something that you could actually do yourself and also would have to build yourself. And that's this little guy over here. I've kind of been infatuated with the trash can Mac Pro ever since it came out 10 years ago now, in 2013. When Mac came out with this design, or when Apple came out with this design, I always wanted to try to put an actual PC inside of here, but logistically it just really doesn't work. I looked into buying an actual trash can Mac Pro for maybe a year or two to try to figure out how exactly I could cram PC components into that exterior shell, which I always found kind of appealing, and I don't really think that I'm going to be able to do it. But there is another solution. There's 3D printing. This is a design that I was able to find online for a trash can Mac Pro analog with the guts that will allow us to mount not only a power supply, a motherboard, and a fan, but due to some interesting modifications by yours truly, we're going to be able to put a graphics card in here also. So I wanted to compare and contrast what you can design and 3D print yourself versus what you can buy on a store shelf, see where the merits of each one of them lie, and see which one you guys might want to see a full build in for the future. Looking to grab Windows at a crazy discount? Head over to SCDKEY.com at the links below and use promo code BPS25 at checkout to score a sweet deal on Windows 10, Windows 11, and Microsoft Office. Once you've completed your purchase, just click over to your user center, hit the green button to view your code, copy and paste it into your Windows activation settings, and away you go. Check out SCDKEY at the links in the video description for Windows, Office, games, and more. So we're going to take a closer look at this guy a little bit later, including a second shell that I had printed in this wild gold and purple color. But before we do that, we got to get the POC out of the box and actually built. There are some instructions via a QR code that I'm going to have to follow. It should be pretty simple and straightforward. So let's get cracking. It actually comes with all the instructions here as well, so that's actually pretty cool. That way you don't necessarily have to scan a QR code and go online in order to build this. You can just follow the instructions right on the pizza box. all done, and in real time, this took me about 20 to 25 minutes to put together, and I was kind of fumbling through it a little bit. I think if you were a little more streamlined, or maybe watched the video and didn't kind of have to figure things out based on the diagrams, maybe you could do this in 15 to 20 minutes. It's not a hard build. Honestly, I think this is probably something that would really go well with like a family setting, maybe teaching your kids how to build a PC, or teaching them a little bit about shapes and engineering and fitment and things like that. This would be a great starting point for a lot of kids getting into PC building, learning how to put something like this together. The size is honestly fairly large. It's not a super tiny mini ITX enclosure, but that does afford it a couple of extra benefits in that it can fit basically any graphics card in it that I could really think of. Maybe not the super long like the XFX Merc cards or something like that, but it fits super thick cards, over 3 slots thick, and you can open up all of these little triangles here for more airflow on both sides if you want. So you have the opportunity to give both your CPU and your GPU a little more air if you want it, or keep it kind of flat like this for the aesthetics. It does come with a single 120mm fan. Didn't install that because we don't have a full system build in here just yet. It also comes with a couple other very minor accessories like some ties and some Velcro straps, as well as a single PCIe slot cover and some cable, I don't know, tie down points, which you can adhere to any place inside of this case as you do your build. So the POC actually is pretty interesting. I like it. I don't know that I would personally put a system in it, for the sole reason that I prefer to have a somewhat larger case, because I swap components out constantly and I do a lot of cleaning and maintenance and testing and stuff like that using my main system. So Mini ITX just as a brand for me doesn't really do it for my system. But if I were to be looking to build a Mini ITX system, this actually is pretty cool. It comes in a couple different colors. You can get it in this black, blue, I think there's like a green, yellow one too. It has nice carrying handles on it that are pretty sturdy. And like I said, it fits a decent amount of hardware as long as you're okay with a Mini ITX motherboard. But now let's talk about this guy, because honestly, this was the reason that I made this video. I didn't know that I was getting a POC until it showed up a day or two ago. So I kind of wanted to include this because it's kind of along the same lines of build it yourself. But this was really the reason why I started to make this video, was because I was very excited to try out a build in such a small and oddly shaped enclosure. Not to mention the fact that I did make some modifications to some of these parts to allow us to put a graphics card in here, which is something that this original build did not have. Now, granted, we're talking about a very small graphics card. This is an RX 6400, and I have already taken off the I/O plate because I anticipated putting it in this system. But the modifications that I made to the interior structure of this case actually only afford for this size GPU. It kind of mounts just like that. So, kind of a wonky solution for a problem that I was trying to solve. Do I just want to go with integrated graphics in a build like this, or do I want to be able to put a little more graphics horsepower in here? I think one of the benefits of having a GPU that's this size is that you could put it in basically anything. And if we can put it in here, we're gonna put it in here. So maybe do some 1080p gaming or something along those lines when we finally do this build. But I did want to get your guys' opinion on what you think of this Mac Pro trash can case versus something like a POC, where you're gonna have obviously a lot more options with this size and layout versus something like this, but this is clearly a lot more unique. Do you guys lean more towards the DIY, design it yourself, print it yourself, build it yourself kind of thing, versus something you might buy off the store shelves that is admittedly quite a bit different from other cases that are on the market? But as far as this Mac Pro design goes, what other hardware besides our RX 6400 are we actually going to be able to put in here reasonably? Well, the first thing is the power supply. And this is the power supply bracket. It's quite small. because we're not going to be able to put a standard size power supply in here. Instead, we're going to have to end up going with something like this, which is a flex power supply or a 1U power supply. This particular unit is fully modular, 500 watts, and it should do plenty for what we're actually planning on putting in here. But you can't use an SFX or an ATX power supply in a build like this. It just would never fit. So this essentially would mount just like this and be able to be mounted vertically inside of our case. The way airflow works inside of this case, we're going to demonstrate with our Inwin Luna fan out of the POC. The fan actually mounts to the bottom of the case and blows supposedly cool air from underneath up and across all of our components that are sitting on top of the fan itself, and then it exhausts out the top through these vented slats. Now, how this is actually going to work is still kind of up in the air. I'm not sure what kind of cooling capacity we're going to be able to get from a setup like this, especially considering that this is completely solid all the way around. That isn't going to allow any air out or in. I think we're going to use low power components. So in addition to our RX 6400, we'll go with something like a Ryzen 5 7600 non-X, or maybe even just a previous generation part like a Ryzen 5 5600 from the previous AM4 platform. So we've got a couple different options for our next mini ITX build, and I want you guys to sound off in the comments on which you would want to see me put together. This is certainly going to be more unique, but the POC is going to allow us to put more powerful hardware in here and get an actual really good gaming experience out of a box like this. So your choices: Inwin POC or BPS Customs Mac Pro trash can. Let me know down below in the comments, and we will build one of these systems in an upcoming video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this content that was a little bit different on some rather unique enclosures, and make sure you get subscribed before you head out of here. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.